Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Patty Chapman, your host. I work in the College Business Career Management Center. This is our fourth talk of our alumni series in the College Business Career Management Center hosts every Tuesday of the semester. This week, we're focusing on investment banking and finance, and next week is entrepreneurship and angel investing, followed by sales, marketing, consulting, more throughout the semester. So all registration links can be found in Handshake. But for today, I'm excited to talk about investment banking and finance. Just a reminder that this session is being recorded, and the link will be posted in Handshake tomorrow under the alumni chats and resource card for all College of Business students to listen to as a podcast whenever is convenient. So we'll have about 20 minutes to chat with Kristen today, and then about 10 minutes at the end for live audience questions. If you have a burning question in the moment, feel free to raise your virtual Zoom hand or send it in the chat, or we'll just do those at the end. So with that, I'd like to welcome our guest today, 2021 finance alumni, Kristen Henthorn. After graduating in the midst of a global pandemic, Kristen went to work on Wall Street for Goldman Sachs in New York City. Kristen has since transitioned to an intermediate associate banker at Citi Private Bank, where she works with partners and executives at premier consulting, accounting, and other firms, helping them with their financial needs. And there's a crazy amount of growth at Citi right now, especially in the private bank. So it's exciting to be part of what they're calling a 10-year startup for Kristen. So we are excited to welcome our guest, Kristen, today. All right, Kristen, we'll go ahead and get started with our questions. Let's set the scene. I remember you came to a finance meetup. I think it was your first year in school, and you said you were there just for extra credit and ended up dominating finance throughout your time here at CSU, became the president of the finance club, and now you're in New York City. Like, look at that background. That's not a virtual background. Can you tell us about your journey? Did you always know you wanted to be in finance? How did you decide to concentrate it? We'll just start with that.
Yeah, well, hi, Patty. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having me today. This is actually the New Jersey view behind me if you're following along on video, but it's very cloudy today, so kind of hard to see. But basically, I guess, I don't know where to start with my whole journey. I would say when I first came to CSU in general, I actually didn't even declare a major. So I didn't even know if I wanted to do business or STEM or, something else right off the bat. I actually attended a kind of an invitation to the College of Business, and everybody just kind of recommended like, hey, why don't you just declare a major or minor in business? I was in the honors program, and so they recommended to go kind of that route. And then I said, all right, like, why not give it a try? I ended up really loving the business school through Biz 100 and just a bunch of interactions with peers, professors, and so on. I kind of settled in finance. I didn't think, certain, I guess, routes didn't speak to me. Marketing didn't really speak to me, or management, or those kind of things. So I thought, why not give finance a try? And it ended up working out. So I would say just a lot of discussion with peers, professors, and kind of interacting with different people there.
Nice. Super important. I know we have a ton of Business 100 students that will be listening to this as well. So yeah, great advice to hear that you were not necessarily like gung-ho at it first. Can you please tell us a little bit about what you do currently? Like, what does being an associate banker at Citi Private Bank mean?
Yeah, sure. So kind of a different transition from my last role. I'm on more of a client-facing role now. So we're talking to, I think as my bio said, top executives, partners at a lot of the big accounting, consulting, and so on firms that you've probably heard of. So we're working on that with them to get, kind of help with their financial needs. So a lot of what I do is onboarding them, kind of welcoming them to the bank. If that's helping them with checking accounts, savings accounts, lines of credit, their lump compensation is very different kind of structure than most maybe junior partners at some of these places. And so kind of helping them with their liquidity needs. We don't personally handle mortgages. We have a different team that does that, but working with all of our product partners to just kind of get these partners in the door. There's a big push for investments right now. So we have a whole investments team that's super exciting that we're rolling out, kind of a different aspect of the business that I don't personally oversee, but a lot of interaction with clients every day, working with my associate bankers, and so on to kind of do what's needed for our clients and help meet their needs.
Awesome. So you just touched a little bit on it, like day to day. What does a day to day look like? You said a 10-year startup. What does that mean? Are you in the office? Are you traveling? Are these virtual client meetings? What does that look like?
Yeah, I would say every day is different. I'm also in a little bit of a more of a junior role, so I haven't done as much client-facing events. The fun taking clients to dinners and things like that. That kind of comes as you progress a little bit more in the role. So something to look forward to. But I would say my day-to-day right now, we're in office about 3 days a week, sometimes two, depending how everyone feels. But we're doing, I'd say we get in 8:30. A lot of emails, client calls, kind of whatever's needed, onboarding clients. There's some back-end processes that we have to oversee and work with some of our approval teams internally to get things pushed through and onboarding clients. We have a lot of international clients as well. So sometimes that's dealing with sanctions and kind of seeing what we are and aren't allowed to do. I would say, the hours are pretty flexible, pretty good work-life balance. But yeah.
Good to know, because that's not always necessarily my first thought when I think investment banking on Wall Street and all that kind of stuff. So that's good to know. And you kind of touched on it here, like you get to progress to the fancy dinners, taking clients out. What does your career path look like from here? What do you envision for yourself? Is it like a linear climb the corporate ladder? Are there professional development opportunities, these promotions? What does that look like within Citi?
Yeah, I'd say that's definitely a loaded question. Not sure exactly where I want to be, 5 or 6 years down the road. Our group specifically at the private bank, that's why we've been calling it, I guess, the 10-year startup. It's growing crazy right now. We honestly cannot keep up hiring enough people to keep up with all of the growth right now. So I guess that's good. There's not, cold client calls like you may have in some other parts of the business. We're just literally just having clients come to us and, trying to take new people on. So that's been crazy. That's been busy. Sorry, now I completely forgot what the question was. I would say my trajectory from this role, you could go a number of different ways. If I wanted to kind of pivot, switch to the investment side, I'm sure there's opportunity for that. If I wanted to go more internally, strategy, kind of look into that, there's room for that. But I would say the most direct path is to be more of an associate banker, which is, kind of leading into the banker step. So the bankers have their own books of clients, and then the associate bankers, intermediate associate bankers are kind of handling more of the day-to-day tasks. And I would say, they're responsible for their book, but we're all kind of supporting the bankers in their own way.
Awesome. That's good perspective to hear, like that's kind of the general day-to-day of a business, of a banker. And then you have the whole team. What does that look like in terms of working autonomously versus on the team, supporting your banker? What's that balance? You said there was a good work-life balance, so that's good. Can you explain a little bit more on that?
Yeah, it definitely varies day to day. There's a good amount of independent work, but I'd say a lot of, emailing. And so like, hey, Kristen, can you take this? Hey, so-and-so, can you take this? Kind of handling off tasks like that. I've also been on client calls. And so, maybe the banker or one of the other more senior associate bankers will lead that, but then I'll do some of the follow-up calls, or, I'm one of the points of contacts for clients to reach out to if they have questions with certain process. So I'd say it's a lot of different kind of interaction, but we have a pretty good team, a pretty solid team base. Everyone's always available to ask questions too and everything like that. And I know 5 months into this role, I still have a lot of questions. So that's good. But I would say, yeah, it's pretty flexible. Lately, it's been a little bit busier hours, but I'm also covering for someone who's on vacation. So that's always been a little busier, but it's been pretty good so far.
Good. Yeah, all about the balance here. So let's go back a few years. So you tell us about your career path. You came to the events. You were constantly in the Career Management Center. We loved seeing you. How did you get started? What did that look like for you? You landed an internship at Goldman Sachs and ended up unfortunately having to be virtual. What did that look like, before transitioning to the real world after graduation?
Yeah. I have to say, I think I remember Ralph Switzer, professor there, telling me my sophomore year, saying, if you ultimately I wanted to get to New York. And he told me kind of, if you get an internship with Goldman and you do some of the investment work, some of those kind of classes, the Summit Fund, that's kind of your ticket to New York. So I got super involved with Goldman, made a lot of connections there, ended up getting an internship through some of those connections. interned remotely during COVID. So I know hopefully that won't be an obstacle for any of you. And then I got the return offer. I had also applied for internal mobility. And so that's what kind of made me, I guess, shifted my move to New York. I had some personal reasons. I wanted to be out here, family, and so on. And so it just kind of ended up working out. They were able to move me to New York. And I guess from there, it just ultimately wasn't quite the right fit for me, I found, Goldman, but I ended up, falling into this city role and interviewing a bunch. And so far, I'm really liking it so far.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. Yes, we definitely miss seeing you around, but we have tons of great finance students, very active finance club as well. We actually have our finance meetup tomorrow night, which we're very excited about. I know you've been very involved with those in the past as well. So thinking about like your time back here at CSU and as a student, did anything you do here, obviously president of the finance club probably helped a lot, but just being involved, coursework, internships, other organizations that you were involved in, even here in the city of Fort Collins, does any of that, do you still think back and rely on, oh, I learned this then and I'm still using it now? What does that look like?
Yeah, I will say honestly, the finance program at CSU, I know Goldman and the other companies have always said they really like how the finance program sets you up. I did a dual concentration in corporate finance and investments, and I think that was really valuable just to kind of see two different aspects of the finance world. I'm not, truly in investment banking, but I think just knowing kind of different aspects of the businesses helped a lot. And then I would also say definitely involvement. So, take as many courses as you can. Like Summit Fund was a great opportunity, and any extra finance electives, if you can take them, would definitely encourage that. And then I would say, yeah, definitely, like I was in finance club, ended up being the president my senior year. I was in the Dean Student Leadership Council. I think those were probably the two biggest clubs that I was involved with. It was a big commitment just between those two, as Patty knows. But I was also in the honors program and a few other things. So I think just being super involved and enjoying my time there was what made it as well.
So involved. How did you balance your time? And still get sleep? Like, I know that there's a ton of first year students, and even it doesn't change up until your last year here at CSU. Like, managing your time is a huge thing and a big struggle for many of us. Do you have any tips or advice on that as well? Like being that involved as a student?
Yeah, I would say still a thing in the corporate world. So time management and everything like that does not ever go away. So definitely good to get a handle on it now. I'm a big list maker, so I try to kind of, list out my priorities for the day. Maybe that's you have an exam in a week, maybe that's, number one priority. And maybe after that you have, one club meeting. And so then maybe, okay, you can spare an hour, you can take a break for an hour for a club meeting or something like that. I would definitely say it's just all about prioritizing and just kind of staying on top of everything, knowing where everything's at. Probably easier said than done, but if you have a planner or whatever kind of system works for you, I would find that now. And it'll probably help transition to the corporate world as well, if that's what you decide to do post-graduation.
Totally. It never goes away. That's a great,
exactly.
Great reminder for all of us. So what is one thing that you wish you had known before transitioning from college to the professional world? You went straight to New York City from little Fort Collins here. Like, what advice or what do you wish you had known?
Yeah, I would definitely say just don't be afraid to reach out. I think I did a fair amount of that, but I almost wish I would have done more just to kind of get to know maybe some people out here before I moved or whatever that looked like. I think LinkedIn is incredibly valuable. I know there's a lot of groups on there, and I know I'm assuming most of you are on it if you're not already. So personally, I'm always happy to connect with any students, like feel free to send me a message or anything like that. But I think it's really just valuable to kind of know, okay, like the real world's out there, but what are people doing out there? Like, I don't think I've ever had anybody from CSU especially like turn me down for wanting to connect with them or, trying to learn about their career. So I would just say like networking is still super important. And I think I didn't always realize how valuable it is to do those kind of things.
Yeah, I think it's funny you hear, it's almost like it's driven into you, through courses, like it's important to network. Like, what does that mean? Like, what does that look like? Like cold calling? Like, I don't want to do that necessarily, but like, yeah, there's great resources out there. So any students on the line, come into the Career Management Center. We can help you get set up. We have informational interviews. Some companies are coming to campus to do specifically that. JBS is tomorrow. There's some great finance people, supply chain accounting, and they're all coming to CSU because they want to talk to students. So there's definitely, it's a great time to be a student right now.
Absolutely. I think being a student especially is very powerful. Like, I don't think I realized that, especially. There's so many different opportunities, so many resources, like the world's really at your fingertips, if that's what you want to say. And shameless plug to the Career Management Center. I know I definitely went there quite a bit and saw Patty or the other career counselors when I was there, when I was, kept switching my mind about what I wanted to do, and it was Goldman or something else, but incredibly helpful.
Well, we always love seeing all of our students in there. We definitely miss you. We're very excited that you're in New York City. We still have free snacks, so definitely students come get your free snacks and just say hi. So we are running out of time just here on our end. I wanted to open it up for questions from the audience. If there's any students that have questions, feel free to unmute yourself and undo your video if you would like, or you can send it in the chat. We'll open it up. If there's any brave souls out there.
Kristen and Sean, how you doing?
Hi, Sean. How are you?
I am excellent. Hey, I have a question, and this kind of takes you talked about this and touched on it twice, but I just want to chat about this real quick, because you talked about work-life balance, and when you hear moving out to New York, the first thing you hear is 100 hours a week. That's what you're going to work. So I know you said that. Where does that come from? That, oh, you're going to work all these hours, to the reality? Is that a specific job? Maybe that you're going to work more of those hours, or can you just chat about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think it definitely depends on the job, depends on the company, depends on what your role is. Obviously, if you're a little bit more junior, you're probably going to be working a little bit more at first. I would say I do have some friends, and my boyfriend also a CSU alum, is actually just moved into investment banking from corporate banking. And I know he's been working quite a few hours, but also, like, right now, for example, the economy is pretty slow, deal flow is pretty slow. So right now, probably investment bankers are not seeing, those 80 to 100-hour weeks that they were. I know with the work-life balance also, like, he's able to come home like 7 or 8 o'clock every night. And then if he has anything else to do, can kind of do that from home. So I would say COVID has helped a lot with the flexibility and some of that work-life balance. I would say in my role specifically, I would say, again, like, I get here, 8 to 8:30. I try to leave around 6:30 or something like that, but it really depends. Like last night I left a little bit earlier because I had a dinner to get to. And that was totally fine. Maybe I'll log back onto my email, see if I missed anything crazy a couple of times at home. Some people prefer not to do that, and some people prefer to stay at the office until 9 o'clock. Everything's done, and then not look at their email at home. So I would say that there's definitely some flexibility there. But I would say it's kind of what you make it as well. Obviously, when you're more junior, you want to put that time in. You want to make sure you're getting everything done, so that everybody knows that. And, when you're looking at promotions and so on. But I would say it definitely depends on the role. I've never really had to work weekends in this role. That varies by job as well. But, if there's something urgent that came up and a client's freaking out, there's some, fraud on account or something like that, then sure, it may not hurt to check. But I would say it's definitely kind of dependent on a few things.
Perfect. Thank you.
Nice. Okay, we got one in the chat here, Kristen. It says, hi, Kristen, you mentioned that you only work at the office 2 to 3 times a week. Do you think this will be the reality, or things might go back to how it was before COVID-19, being 5 days in the office a week?
Yeah, definitely depends on the role. I do have some friends at PE firms or investment banks or other places, and they are pushing for more of that 4 to 5 day week. I know, like, when I left Goldman, I know they're pushing a little bit more towards that as well. So I would just say it depends probably on the bank and on the job as well. But on my team, I don't think that they'll probably do more than 3 days a week, just because of the flexibility. And, sometimes there's client events and, we're not even at the office, or people leave early or have dinners elsewhere. And so I think having that flexibility to be able to be like, oh, like, if I have a client dinner and it's right next to my apartment, like, I can just leave at, 4 o'clock and not have to travel as far. So I think there's definitely some flexibility with that, but I would say it really just depends on the company and the job type at this point, which is, fortunately or unfortunately, but.
Totally. It's been wild to see, and kind of that gradual like ease back into it versus the hard stop. We're going back to the office. What did that look like for you all? Did you have that kind of flexibility going back? I know that was probably maybe when you were at Goldman. Yeah. What did that look like?
I think they just tried for the new analyst orientation and everything, they wanted us to be in person. And so they did do 2 to 3 days initially in office. My team at first wasn't going in as often, and so I didn't go in as often, but I think it was nice just to kind of get, to meet everyone face to face. It's very different, and at least to have some sort of interaction. Then for a while around the holidays, we kind of went back to remote when there was a flare up with COVID and everything out here. And so it was very dependent on that. When we went back in January, you had to get your booster shot to be back into the office. And so then it was kind of like you have to be, boosted by this point, or otherwise you have to maybe seek special permission or whatever that might look like. But I would say it was definitely a little bit more of a hard stop. I think at City, it's been a little bit slower. I know some people are still trying to come back into the office, and our office is pretty full right now. So it's definitely not enough desk space for everyone, but.
That's wild. That crazy amount of growth. I can only imagine. Like, that's great for your business. So we have another question that came through the chat. It says, I'm sure the application process to Goldman Sachs is very competitive. Why do you think they chose you?
Yeah.
You're not wrong. It is very competitive. I heard they have more applications than Harvard does a year. So
yeah.
Yes, please tell us, Kristen.
Yeah. It's a very good question. I can't say exactly why they chose me. I did do a lot of networking through Finance Club and through all of the different events when Goldman was on campus. So I made some really good connections. I followed up with everyone. Even after my internship, I continued to follow up with my manager and everything like that. And so I think just following up, I know like Brian Krongard, I know he's still with Goldman. And so people like that, I would follow up with him, maybe once a quarter, maybe every few months or so on like that, just check in, be like, hey, this is kind of an update on my school, like what's going on, like, hope you're doing well, just kind of a check-in. And he was always more than happy to either, email me back or just jump on the phone for a quick call or something like that. So I would say making those connections is key. So that definitely helped. I also think that Goldman hires kind of a specific kind of person from what I've been told. So I'm pretty type A and everything like that. And funny enough, that actually helped me get my job at Citi because the banker that I support also used to formerly work at Goldman. And so he was like, oh, like he bonded over that initially. And he was like, oh, we have to take her because I know what kind of people they hire. And I think that's just kind of interesting to see that Goldman was definitely competitive, but just having those connections and, helping you get in. And once you have that on your resume, like it even helped me get into this job, or down the road it might as well.
Yeah, I think it speaks to any company, like most companies, yes, some might have requirements for your application or anything, but networking and showing who you are as a person and getting in with your networking, that can go so very far. So very far.
Definitely. I mean, that helped me with this role as well. So.
Yeah. Most companies can train anybody. They're just looking for, are you willing to work? Are you willing to learn? Have that flexibility as well. So, which is most of our students, which is so great. All right. Does anybody else have any questions live here today?
Oh. Hi, Kristen. I have a quick question. You mentioned that you kind of knew that you wanted to move to New York. I'm curious if that stemmed after you decided that you wanted to do finance, or if that was kind of like predated your decision to even go into the College of Business or go into finance.
Wow, it's also a very good question. Honestly, I always kind of wanted to move to New York. I visited once in high school and I just absolutely loved it, which is probably cliche and everyone says that, but I absolutely fell in love with it out here. It's complete opposite of where I grew up, very small town in Colorado. And Fort Collins is very hard to beat, but I just absolutely knew I wanted to do New York. I actually minored in merchandising at CSU as well. And so fashion, finance, New York's kind of the place to be. So once I fell into finance, it just really, really sold it for me.
Nice. The big city. We have another one that came through the chat. It says, what was it like working on Wall Street? Like banking in the big city? What's that like?
Yeah. I guess funny enough, most of the firms are not actually on Wall Street anymore. But if you consider any of the Wall Street firms, any of the big banks, definitely varies by what role you're in, varies by company. It's definitely probably a little bit busier out here. I know New York's a different kind of lifestyle. I think the best way I've heard it described is, like people ask what you do out here and they mean what do you do for work? Whereas Colorado, people ask what you do and they mean, oh, do you like ski? Do you hike? Like, like what kind of activities do you do? So I think that's probably the best way to describe the difference. But I've still, I've met really great people out here, made a lot of friends. And I think while it's different, I think Wall Street, like you can make it work. It kind of just depends on your role and what you're interested in.
Nice. I have a question, and feel free to send any more in the chat before we wrap up here. But Kristen, what advice do you have? That can be kind of intimidating. Moving to a new city, you might not know people. There's a billion people in New York City. Like, what advice do you have for students that are maybe interested, not willing to commit yet, thinking about it down the road?
Yeah. Gosh.
Didn't mean to put you on the spot here.
No, it's very hard to say. I was fortunate. My boyfriend actually moved out at the same time and we ended up moving in together. So it made it a little bit easier to have someone from home. I also had a few friends out here that kind of moved without knowing anybody or met roommates either online before or kind of found people once they moved out here. It's definitely a different experience for everyone. I think New York is a little bit harder to move to compared to other cities. So if you're thinking about, like Houston or Chicago or something like that, I think it might be a little bit easier. But I think also New York, I mean, there's even out here, there's still some CSU alumni that I've run into or grabbed drinks with or whatever that looks like. And so I think it's cool to know that there's still Rams out here that are willing to meet up. And, there's still an alumni network. Probably any new city you move to, you could probably find someone. So it's definitely has its own challenges, but don't be scared. Like, I think it's a great opportunity to move somewhere else, and worst case you could always move back if you don't like it after a year or something. So definitely doesn't have to be forever.
Totally. Nothing is necessarily permanent. So that's good advice. And yes, there are RAM networks, alumni networks. Like, just if you have any questions, reach out to the Career Management Center, the Alumni Association here, LinkedIn. There are so many alumni on LinkedIn that are willing to chat with students, both informational interview wise. We actually have an informational interview group on LinkedIn still. It's full of business professionals that are willing to chat with students, and it's all there for you. So students, if you have any questions on that, just feel free to come into the Career Management Center. We're in Rockwall West 210 still, the office with the free snacks upstairs in the window. So yeah, that we're almost at time. If anybody has any burning questions to end with, we'll get those in. Or Kristen, thank you so much for your time, and thank you everybody for being here. We so appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for being here. Just a reminder, a quick plug, the finance meetup is tomorrow. So that will be, I guess, the day this recording is released. It'll be the evening of on October 5th at 5:30 in the LSC Ballroom A. So lots of cool employers are going to be there, including Partners Group, JP Morgan, amazing opportunities for finance students, all grades, all ages, to learn, to network, and to ultimately land jobs and internships. So we hope to see you there. And thanks again, Kristen. We so appreciate you.
Thank you all.
All right, everybody. Happy Tuesday. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.